In this video, we'll look at functions in JavaScript. Functions are a block of code that can be defined and invoked to perform a particular task. So let's look at how we can define a function in JavaScript. We start by writing the function keyword, then the name of the function. So in this example, the name of my function is greet, then parentheses, and then curly bracket. Then in the curly bracket, you put in your piece of code. So I'll just say console.log, a simple hello world, and save. So by so doing, I have declared a function. So in order to declare a function, we start with the function keyword, then the name of the function. So over here, I'm using greet, so it can be hi or anything, depending on what name you want to give to your function. Then parentheses, which we'll look at in more details, and then curly bracket. In the curly bracket, you put in your piece of logic. So any number of code can go here. Whatever piece of logic or code you want to execute with this function, you put it in this parenthesis. So when I go to my terminal and try running my code, let's look at what will happen. We see that nothing happens, or we didn't get the console.log printed in the terminal. Why? Because whenever we declare functions, we have to call or execute or invoke that functions by writing the name of the function and then parentheses. So by so doing, I have what? Invoked this function, or I have called this function. So when I go ahead and then run my file again, we now get hello world printed. Let me write my hello world properly. Hello world printed in the console. So this is how we can define and then invoke a function in JavaScript. Now, in these parentheses, we can put in what we call what? Parameters. So let's say I want this function to be called with the name of what? The user or anybody. A name will be passed to this function. We can put in a parameter here. So I can say, let's say username parameter here. And whenever this function is called, it will say hello. It will not say hello world, but hello, then username, and save. So whenever I call this function, I have to pass in an argument. So over here, we define parameter, and then whenever I call this function, I have to pass in an argument. So I'll just say Bob here and save. So when I go ahead, let me clear my terminal quickly and then run my code, we get hello Bob here. So I can go ahead, call this function, and mind you, whenever we define functions, we can call that function any number of times. So I can come here and call this function and pass in Alice here. When I go ahead and run my code, so we get hello Bob and then hello Alice printed in the console. And I can continue to pass in calls the function any number of times, and when I don't pass in any argument, we get undefined or hello undefined here. So we see we get hello undefined because we didn't pass in what? An argument or a variable. So that is it. So we can go ahead and then pass in any number of parameters. So I can say username, age, and anything, any number of parameters. And whenever I can say hello username and then console.log something like let's say my age is, and then I'll just put age here and save. Getting error because I've lost my parentheses, my closing, and save here. Good. So when I go ahead, I'll pass in the name, then the username, and then pass in an age of 20, and over here I'll pass in an age of, let's say 50, and save. I'll just comment this one out, and when I go to my terminal, I'll clear it quickly. Then we get what? My age is 20. Hello Bob, my age is 20. Hello Alice, my age is what? 50. So this is how we can define functions and pass in what? Parameters. And whenever we call those functions, we have to make sure we provide arguments to those parameters. And mind you, these parameters serve as local variables to this function block. So this is a function block. I cannot come here and then say console.log username. Yeah, I cannot do that. When I try running this code, I'll get username, I'll get an error. So you can see the error here, username is not defined. So these variables, these parameters serve as local variable to this function block. So it cannot be called out of this scope or in the global scope or any other scope assigned this function scope. So that's it about declaring functions. Now another way we can declare a function is using what we call function expression, whereby we declare a function and then set it to a variable. So I'll just comment this out quickly and then say console. I can use the cons or let keyword and then write the name of the function. So I'll just say greet, then I'll assign it to a function keyword. So we can write a name or an unnamed function, and then in curly bracket I'll just say console.log hello world and save. And mind you, whenever we define function, we have to call the function. So writing the name of the function to what? Invoke it, and then parentheses. So I'll just go ahead, clear my terminal, and when I call this file or run this file, we get hello world printed in the console. So this is what we call what? Function expression, whereby we assign a function to what? A variable. So I can use let here as well, and when I use let to declare this function, we get the same result. And I can go ahead and then pass in what? Variables here, parameters here, such as username, and then I'll use my age again, and then let's say I'll just console.log username and then what? Age. And then when I go and when I call this function, I have to make sure I provide what? Those usernames or those arguments quickly. And when I run my code, we get what? Bob and Alice, Bob and then 20 and then hello world printed in the console. So this is how we can define a function and assign it to what? A variable. Another way we can declare a function is using what we call arrow function. So I'll just go ahead and declare a simple function called add, and then this will take number 1, and then let me just say another number, and then it will just add these two numbers. So I'll just console.log something like num1 plus num2, then let me just write this. I think I should use interpolation here. So the result is, and then I'll just interpolate num1 and then plus num2 quickly here. So I think that is that. The result of, let me just interpolate this quickly, num1 and num2 is, and then do that. So this is just a simple add function. So I'll just call the add function and then pass in some random values here. Let's see how it works. Clear my terminal and then run my file. So we get the result of 20 and 40 is 69, or yeah, so that is it. So our function is working. So when I go ahead, call my function again, pass in some random values, and then go to my terminal and then run my file, we get the results printed in the console. So this is what we call function declaration. So I can write what we call function expression, whereby I set this function to a variable. One thing I want us to look at is called arrow functions, whereby it's a very short and concise syntax of declaring function. So let me declare, or let's look at how I can declare this function as an arrow function. So the arrow function syntax goes like this. So I'll say const add and then add 2. Let me just put out 2 here. Other than that, when I try declaring another function with the same name, I'll get error. So I'll use equals, then we use this fat arrow syntax, and I'll just copy this piece of code here and then paste it here, and then first of all put my values here, num1 and then number 2, and save. So this is how we can declare what we call an arrow function. So when I go ahead and call add 2 and then let me just copy this and then paste here and comment these ones out, and then put 2 here so that we know that we are calling the arrow function. When I clear my terminal and run my file, we get the same result. So this is what we call what? Arrow function. So this is how the arrow function syntax looks like. It's a very short and concise way of what? Declaring function. So we write the cons or let keyword, and then the name of the function, then equal to, then in parentheses. So if we don't want to put anything in the parentheses, we can just put an empty parenthesis here, and then we return what? A function block or a block, which will be what? So these variables are um, scoped to this function block, and they cannot be accessed outside. So this is how we can declare an arrow function. So a simple arrow function can look like maybe x equals just this, then I'll just return what? X or something like this. So this is a very short and concise one arrow function. I can say let, then whenever, so I'll just say you should return what? 1. So this function will return 1. So when I call X and I go to my terminal and run my file, you see that it returns, sorry, we are returning a value from this function. We are not console.login. So let's say, I'll just say let value. Whenever I return from a function, we have to what? Save it to a variable, or better still, I can just do this quickly using console.log. Let me do this quickly, then copy this like this, cut it, and then put it here so that our console.log will call that for us. We didn't see anything because I didn't return in it or print anything to the console. So by so doing, hopefully we get 1 in our terminal here. So that leads me to for us to discuss what we call returning values from a function. So let's look at how we can return a value from a function. So we cannot only print, but we can return what? A value. So let's say I'll use my same add function again. So I'll use function declaration add. So I'll say value 1, and then let me just use num1 quickly. So num1 and then num2. Then over here I can use the return keyword to return num1 plus num2. Sorry, not that. Num2 quickly and save. So whenever I return, so I'll go ahead and call this function. So when I go to my terminal and clear quickly and invoke this file, we don't get anything printed in the console. So this value has been returned from this function, but we are not doing anything with it. So we can save that return value. So I can say let result or cons result equals what? Add. So that return value will now be stored in this variable, result variable, and then I can go ahead and then console.log what? Result. And when I go to my terminal and run my file again, we get what? And sorry, the reason why we are getting any n, which simply refer to not a number, is I'm not passing any value here. So argument here. So let me just pass some values quickly. That was my bad. And then run my file. So we get 70 printed in our terminal. So this is how we can return values from what? A function. So over here in this simple arrow function, whenever you do this, it means you are returning this value, or I can put a block of code here and then use the return keyword to return a value from this function, arrow function. So when I do that, this is also valid. So whenever you are writing arrow function, whenever you don't have any parameter, you should always bring this parentheses. But if you want, if you have one parameter, so let's say I have a parameter, let's say value, whereby I am returning that value, I can remove the parentheses, whereby the syntax will look like this. So that is all about function declaration and arrow functions in JavaScript. That's all for this video. Please subscribe and like for more videos and contents like this. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next one.